The Elizabethan Age. In England, the Renaissance is known as the Elizabethan Age. This period was named after the powerful English ruler Queen Elizabeth I, who ruled Great Britain for 45 years, from 1558 to 1603. Elizabeth's reign began a period of English history during which language and literature flourished. At the heart of the English Renaissance was the love of language and the art of theater. Several developments during Elizabeth's reign helped the theater to thrive. As one example, acting changed from an amateur to a professional status. The citizens who had performed the medieval religious plays and the plays in the homes of nobility were replaced by companies of professional actors who played regularly around London and throughout the country. This development gave playwrights a more stable and experienced group of performers for whom to write more detailed and complicated plays. Along with this rise in the profession of acting came the building of permanent theaters, public buildings where all classes of people could attend performances. These permanent buildings began to replace the temporary stages that had been set up in the town squares or in cathedral yards. The new theater buildings created spaces dedicated specifically to the presentation of theatrical events. Because of the church's earlier policy, which looked at all theater that was not religious in nature as an evil activity, the City of London did not permit theater buildings to be erected inside the city limits. Therefore, the permanent theaters so popular during the Elizabethan period were located outside the city, across the Thames River, and audience members had to leave the city to see a play. The audience knew that a play was going to be presented at one of the theaters across the river by seeing a flag fly from high atop the theater, which was the signal that there would be a performance that day. Of these theater spaces, the most famous was the Globe Theater, which was the location for the presentation of Shakespeare's plays. Most Elizabethan theaters were circular or octagonal structures of about 3 stories with an open roof. We know that the Globe was such a building. The raised platform stage was surrounded by the audience on 3 sides and was closer to a contemporary thrust stage than to a proscenium arch stage, which was so popular at this same period in time in Italy. Behind the platform stage was a stage house, known as a tiring house, which served as a backdrop for the action. This structure served as backstage space for changing and storing costumes and props, and the few scenic pieces used in the productions. At the back of the platform was an inner area called the inner stage, a roofed area that could be separated from the front of the platform to suggest an interior setting. Above this, on the roof of the inner stage, was a second playing space, a sort of balcony where some of the scenes might be played. This was no doubt where Shakespeare's famous balcony scene in Romeo and Juliet would have been played. There was a third level of platforming above this balcony stage space, which was called the musicians' gallery, where a small group of musicians might be stationed to provide music during the play. There was usually a roof coming out from the top of the stage house to protect the various layers of playing space from direct sunlight or rain. The form of the English plays written in this period was different from the plays being written in Italy and on the European continent. The English did not follow the new neoclassical ideal, which required their plays to observe strict unities of time, place, and action. Instead, the English dramas of the period were structured in a series of brief scenes, which frequently changed location from place to place. These quick shifts in action required that the Elizabethans adopt a much freer use of stage space. They didn't use the perspective painting and wings used by the Italians. Instead, the Elizabethan stage was an open platform with little or no scenery placed on it. This platform was a neutral playing area, which could become many different locations in the same play. When one group of characters left the stage and another group entered, the audience knew that the scene was changing. An actor might carry on a single piece of furniture to suggest the location of the next scene. A throne, for example, might indicate a palace setting. A table and a few props might indicate a dining hall. At other times, a character might signal the next location by announcing it in the early lines of the scene. This type of signal to the audience is called spoken decor. Language was important in Elizabethan plays in all respects, even scenery. Another noted feature of Elizabethan drama was the use of poetry. Christopher Marlowe, 1564 to 1593, was one of the first playwrights to utilize a special type of dramatic poetry called iambic pentameter, which is written to contain 5 beats or stress points per line. Words in iambic pentameter have 2 syllables to each beat, and when spoken, stress is placed upon the second beat. This makes the language almost musical in nature. By far the most important playwright during this period was William Shakespeare, whom you will learn more about later in this class.